And now, last year we talked to a large asset manager that basically the buyers said, we really like your product, but our management thinks that you are too small to work with still. And 6 months later, we come back, we suddenly have 5 more customers on board. So then you continue this relationship. I think as long as you have a strong product, you can always try to push a bit more at market, and you should be able to get quite far with that, even with the same ICP, because a lot of it also is about, like, especially on the finance sector, is about just trust on the brand and on the people, and who are your shareholders, who else is your customer, and so on. For a lot of these large buyers is, are you going to be around in 5 years or not, right? So
yeah,
a lot of times it's not even about product features. It's a lot about brand building and traction and and social proof.
And this is hard to get in, and I think that's why this focusing on a niche is almost imperative, right? It's this idea of you're always going to be a tiny fish in a big pond, or maybe you'll become a big fish in a very little pond, right? It's a little bit easier to cover, but nonetheless, I think the move to enterprise is always tricky. So because you're kind of looking for early adopter enterprises, which are, I think, relatively hard to find. But I like what you said, your sales strategy. I was just thinking about this guy, Zig Ziglar, is this sales guy who was selling, I think, pots and pans. And it's this idea, he wrote a book about it, basically, about how he did it, because most traveling salesmen who were selling pots and pans, they would go by each city and they'd give it a shot, right? They ring everybody's doorbell and said, "Do you want to buy a pan?" And maybe 90% said no and 10% said yes. So they sell these pans and then they move to the next village. But Zig Ziglar, he didn't, right? He would kind of take his caravan or whatever and move into the village for a month and just sit and have dinner with them and cook for them and go to church and just be there. And in the end, like stay for a very long time, but sell to maybe 80% there. So it's also about not going for quick acquisition, but having this long breath and investing the time. That is, in reality, I think, very hard to do. To be honest, I face it myself as a freelancer looking for clients. It's very hard to continue investing time in a relationship when you don't know if it's ever going to go somewhere, because it also costs you time and money and effort. So you have to be willing to have that long breath. So I think in theory, I'm like, of course I should do that. But in reality, it's relatively hard to do that. Even for sales agents, it's way more fun to just close a lot of sales, right? So how do you, is it a type of person you hire for the role? And how do you do that?
Yeah, so this is a very, very interesting conversation. I talked to one of the most known VCs today. We had like check-ins from time to time, and we were talking about what kind of things we should look into accomplishing by the next fundraise or something. So it's always good to know what they're seeing in the market and so on. And one of the things that we discussed a lot about was ARR is always a key metric, but it's mostly about like the quality of the ARR. How old is ARR? I mean, of course, churn is a thing, but also can you add something to the ARR that tells more of a story about, okay, are people actually getting a lot of value out of this money, or you just have a very strong sales team or spending a lot on acquisition and then growing that ARR, but it's gonna all come down crashing in a few years. So I think this involvement in the community that you mentioned, going to church and all of that stuff, is about like building that like quality relationship with the customer base. I think it's super important. We are really focused in Sweden and the Nordics now, and primarily is because it allows us to build a better product for those customers. For example, we can localize our reporting into Swedish or Norwegian, right? So like the more niche you are, the more you have also an advantage to incumbents, right? Maybe they sell worldwide and they don't have this thing you can do because you're focused on the Nordics. But also the social proof aspect become easier because we sign one Swedish fund and then the next Swedish fund knows about this fund. So then, okay, they know who they are and it's a bit easier, and our customers kind of know each other. And maybe like when we decide, okay, let's go out and focus more on Norway, they already know the Swedish funds. And then having that, even though we could, we have an internet product, we could sell it worldwide. Having this more like niche focus on, also from a market perspective and also from not only from a customer type perspective, it has a lot of advantages. And it's another like counterintuitive thing of like, no, but we want to sell to everyone, so why would we only do this niche on this one market, right?
Yeah.
But it puts you in a very advantageous position both from a building the best product for that market, and also from a social proof perspective, and building those relationships and helping them kind of join your mission more so than you selling them a product that solves a need. More going to church with them, even though we don't quite go to church with them, but that same mindset.